Listen, guys, congratulations. You just started your business. You are now officially young entrepreneurs at 10 and 11 years old. Congratulations, Noah. Congratulations, Matthew. You are Young and Informed Media, LLC. Extra, extra. Read all about it, Young and Informed. I don't doubt it. Everybody know they strong and they bout it.
Jermaine Sean Smith. Jermaine Sean Smith. Jermaine.
This fight doesn't stop here. The fight goes to the City Hall. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Today is Monday morning. 9:30 in the morning. And usually on Mondays, it's hard to get up. Am I the only one? Usually on Monday mornings, we need a little bit of an extra hit on the snooze button. Usually we need that tall grande from Starbucks, right? Usually that's what we need, but not today. Not today, because we are here for fear. Future. Something that we believe in, something that we know we can achieve, that every youth deserves a chance. Every youth deserves a chance at a fair future. Thank you for that. They know what's up.
Welcome to Conversations With. Today we have Jermaine Sean Smith and his Stop Surviving and Start Thriving approach to empower his community as the next City Councilman of District 27 Council District in Queens, New York. Good afternoon, Mr. Smith. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Matthew and Noah, for having me on your show, Young and Informed. I'm excited to be here today. I must admit, if you do hear a little noise in the background, that is my 2-year-old. I tried to escape to the man cave to have this conversation, but she seems to have found her way upstairs. So, but yes, I'm excited to be here and talk with you too, because I'm really excited to hear what you guys have to ask and just speak about what's happening in our communities.
Let's start. Who is Jermaine Sean Smith? Walk us through the man that exists before becoming the candidate for City Council.
So, when you're going along this process, you hear a lot of, really good questions. And no one has ever asked me yet, who is Jermaine Sean Smith in that manner. So I thank you for such a question and opportunity to answer it. Jermaine Sean Smith is a father, a husband, and a servant. And I've been doing those things for the servant part for a majority of my life. When I was growing up in church, I would be at church on Sundays, Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturday mornings for choir rehearsal. There was always an event happening at church. There was always something to get involved in. And one of the main principles and things that I've got from my grandparents who raised me was the fact that it is your obligation to do for others. Those that are less fortunate, those that may not have as much resources, it is your responsibility to do that. And one of the first places she had me do that was in the soup kitchen, and the Feed the Homeless and the after school tutoring program. And so that's where I believe my servant kind of understanding the value of serving other people was birthed. And that's who I am today. I know a lot of people use this phrase, they say servant leadership, and it's from a really good book, and I had an opportunity to dive into it a little bit. But I believe that the first part of that is the servant is something that is just intrinsically in certain people to want to take care of other people. And then the leadership, when you add that to it, you're constantly figuring out how to bring a magnitude of servanthood to a population that needs leadership. So to boil it all down, Jermaine Sean Smith is a servant and has been a servant for majority of my life, and will continue to be a servant well until my last days, because there's such a great value in helping others.
What schools did you attend that helped shape you to be who you are today?
That's a great question. So, one of the big things that I care about is education, right? Education is the way that we get to change the narrative of our communities. And school to me, growing up, I remember my first grade teacher, and her name was Miss Eckerd. And, I did all the placement exams to get into the accelerated classrooms, and, a little stage fright. I didn't do as well as I wanted, but I went to that first grade class and I killed it. And, I thought I was doing really good. And Miss Eckerd said to me, she was like, she said to my grandparents at the time, Jermaine is really smart, but I feel like I know he can do even more. And I feel like that was the start of me understanding that, if I tap into really locking in and focusing, spending less time watching TV, that I'd be able to do really well. So it started in elementary school in first grade, but I think everything sort of like came together, with my master's degree from NYU, spending time there. Well, just to put some more context, I've spent about 15 years working with young people and getting a lot of experience and understanding that servant leadership that we were just talking about. And I dabbled with the idea of law school. My wife is an attorney. I got into a few law schools, and I said to myself, I'm not really interested in law. It's not my thing. Reading law books was not fun to me, but what was fun was leadership books from some of my favorites. And it was like the NYU program for this master's degree in public administration. It's an executive program, and it really spoke to me. And when I went there, I was expecting to learn so much, but what I was able to do is realize I've been doing a lot of this work my entire career, but now I know all the tips and tricks that really help to accentuate it. So it was a grad school experience that really, made me realize that I really know exactly what it is that I'm doing. I have a lot of experience at it, and I'd be able to impact change in whatever it is that I, put my mind to.
Do you feel your college education provided practical import in your career?
Well, Matthew and Noah, I'm in a really sticky situation here, right? I understand the value of college, and I think that it's not necessarily everything you learn per se, but it's the grit and fortitude that is needed to attain a bachelor's degree. It's hard work. It's hard work when you're 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 to stay focused, to get those credits. But it's so rewarding because it allows for you to get a peek into different things that you'd be really good at. So did my college career prepare me? No, I can't say necessarily that it prepared me, but it did sharpen my ability to understand what it is that I'm passionate about, which is helping people.
As a young boy our age, what were some of the things that you saw happening in society? Did any of that influence your path and determination?
Yeah, that's another great question. I mean, you guys are just, these questions are really coming off wonderful and very poignant, and to just bring it back to my childhood and what I was going through at the time. You see, my childhood was a little bit of a different era than it is now, because I'm sure, you guys are involved with school and activities. I see debate team, I see church, I see a lot of these things that I was lucky enough to be a part of as well. But when I was growing up, there was a thing called the crack epidemic. And what that was doing was, it was basically ripping apart families in New York City. And while I came towards the end of it, there was still this idea that there was like too much teen pregnancies and too much people that were being not afforded opportunities because they started their families really young. And so a lot of what was drilled into my head was that your education is directly connected to your outcome and how much you're able to provide for your children. And so understanding that one day I wanted to be a father, I knew I, at a young age, cannot be putting myself in a position where I would be a father at a young age. And so a lot of the focus was on, prevention and family planning and doing the right thing. And I was actually talking to one of my good friends for over 35 years now. We all grew up in the same, in the same church, and all of us, not one of us didn't have a child young. We didn't go down that path because we understood that we want to be able to do for our children. And so we have to be in a position where we have our education together, our resources are together, so that we're leaving our child in a better place, right? With more resources, the ability to go to debate team, prep, and to go to and have a home that they live in instead of bouncing around from apartment to apartment. That was an important value that was taught to me at a young age from many mentors. And I appreciate that they did that, because not everybody has the same path. And, some people do have that. But as a young Black man coming up, it was always instilled in me to make sure that I was not only thinking about today or the next week, but more so thinking about what I'm doing now is going to impact me 20 years from now. And I still have that same mindset till today. Thanks for that great question.
I think it's awesome what you were thinking at such a young age. It shows such integrity and strength, and I congratulate that. I applaud that.
Thank you for that compliment. I appreciate that.
Okay, next question. What career did you find the most gratifying working in after you graduated school? And how did this career impact and change your life?
So, when I was doing my undergraduate degree, I recall that I started working in a group home congregate setting, right, before maybe the year before I graduated, and I would go to the setting, and I wasn't taking the job seriously. I was working with young people. I was young myself, but what I didn't realize was that when I was there, my GPA went up even higher. So I was able to graduate summa cum laude because I was forced to lock in and study more than I normally, would. You're 20, you want to party, you want to have fun, but having the responsibility of work helped me focus in and lock in even more on school. And what I found was that I came in with this perception of what I wanted the young people that I was working with to achieve. And, I would get placed with in a home, and it would be 8 young men, and they were all, from about your age to about 14 or 16 years old. And in that setting, they are taken from their families. They're put in the system essentially, and they had to fight just to get out. They didn't have all the resources that they would need. And I remember being in that setting, and I thought to myself, man, I'm going to get all these young men in college. They're going to get scholarships. They're going to get, but after some time, and this is where the most gratifying part came about, was I came to understand that my idea of them succeeding means absolutely nothing. My idea of them being successful young people had no place in the work that I was doing with them. What I had to adjust and change to was understanding that everyone has their own ambitions, goals, and things that they can achieve that make them feel successful. So while I may have wanted everybody in there to become doctors and attorneys and engineers, right? Having some of them graduate with their high school or graduate from junior high school and get into a good high school. Those were some of the achievements that I had to change, like my perception of what success was. And I think that was the most gratifying. Once I started to realize that it wasn't about me. It's not about what I think is good for those young people that I was working with. Instead, it's about them setting a goal, them doing the work, me giving the support, me advocating for them to get the resources that they need, and them achieving that thing. That's when it was gratifying. One young man, and I'll close with that, on this question, one young man, I have several of them that I stay in contact with till this day. And, that was over 17 years ago or 18 years ago. And I tell you, the young man went on to go to St. John's. The young man went on to St. John's University. He also became a professional boxer. And now he's no longer a professional boxer, owns a gym and in Long Island, and he trains other young men. So, you know, when I'm looking back at this now, I'm saying these little seeds that I planted in this young man, where his family was addicted to crack, his cousins were deep into the drug game. This young man was able to avert going down that path, which would have led to either death or incarceration, got a college degree, started his own business, started a professional athlete career, started his own business, and now he's pouring into other young men that need that kind of direction. Like, that is really where you're saying, like, you know, gratifying. That's really where you get to see the fruit of your labor come to pasture.
What were some of the greatest challenges you faced as a foster care advocate?
The problem, and a lot of times, especially on this campaign trail, trying to connect it to voters has been really interesting, and it's one of the most difficult and rewarding things that I've found. Many people don't understand that literally every issue the city faces, a foster care child faces it too. Every issue. If you think about housing, if you think about education, if you think about resources, if you think about benefits access, you think about every single issue, a foster care youth faces that. And many people have their niche issues. So the seniors, right? The elderly people, we have to take care of them. They need resources. They need to have a place to go. That's literally something that's very important. But these foster care youth, I've been helping to solve that issue for years now, right? You finally get to that place. Education, our young people need schooling to do better for themselves, to help break generational curses so that their children can have even more opportunities than they had. Foster care youth, many of them have a lot of issues, trauma related from their past, that needs to be advocated for with the school system, so they get the resources. And so it's connecting to voters that every single issue that I've been tackling for the past 15 years with foster care youth and with people in the human services field are directly connected to the exact needs of our community, especially during this pandemic. So one of the hardest thing to answer the question is that making people have a sense of empathy for an underserved population where they don't understand. You know, a lot of people just think these young people may have did something and that's why they're in the system. Many of these kids did nothing, absolutely nothing wrong. Their parents may have did something. They may not have had, you know, the parents may not no longer be with us, and then they have nowhere else to go. And so now they're with New York City as their guardian. And these young people didn't do anything wrong to be in this position, but we have to fight. I have to fight to make sure that they're being taken care of, because they are the city's children. You know, just like many of us, we have our parents, we have people, they are the city's responsibility, and it's the city that must step up and do the work for them.
What were some of the greatest successes you achieved as a foster care advocate?
For that question, and thank you for another great question, I'll start on a very small scale, and then I'll go big scale, right? So small scale maybe happened about 8-9 years ago. When you have a system where young people feel feel abandoned and betrayed by the city for taking them from their family, they don't want to engage with the people that are providing help to them. So my department that at the time I was put in charge of was called Youth Development. We were supposed to be getting young people ready to be successful adults, and nobody ever interacted. It was a desert. at the office, no young people there, no engagement. So what I decided to do, and I think this just speaks a little bit towards like one of the many gifts that God has blessed me with. But what I decided to do was look at the problem and say, okay, number one, there is no culture here. People don't want to be around. And if people don't want to be around, they don't trust you. They don't trust you. You can't help them. So I said to myself, we have to spend some time building culture. So we spent some time and we instituted a small, but I think groundbreaking thing wherein instead of paying a young person to come to a program, $25 to come to this program to learn how to budget, right? What we did was we created a points-based program called Yodi Bucks, Youth Development Bucks. So every time they would come, I would give them 10 Yodi Bucks. And at the end of the year, when it was time for a Christmas gift, we'd make sure that they'd get exactly whatever it was, whether it was a PlayStation 4, 3 at the time, whether it was a new pair of Jordans that they wanted, these things that many of us can't even afford for our kids. We, instead of paying them $25 each time they came out for hundreds of young people, we decided let's do a points-based system. That literally revolutionized how we did youth development in the agency that I worked at. So that's on a small scale, right? That's just working for the young people that I was in charge of. Then most recently, I've been on the front lines leading the charge for a thing called Fair Futures.
Here's what it is. We've gathered several of the city's foster care agencies. We've gathered several of the nonprofit agencies that believe in this cause. And we are all united with one mission: Fair Futures! And because we are united, today we stand before you with a mission. And that mission is to make sure we secure funding. Now listen, there's gonna be a lot of smart people that talk. I'm not one of them, I'm sorry. There's gonna be a lot of smart people that talk that's gonna give you numbers about what this means for our youth of today. There's gonna give you a lot of people that's gonna come up and talk about their personal stories of how coaching has affected their personal lives. And all of those stories are gonna help us understand that Fair Futures is something that is needed for the city. New York City needs to be the first in the nation to adopt this, where we can be inclusive of everyone's dreams and everyone's aspirations to make it in this world.
And I'm really proud of this program because in my race that I'm running, I can confidently say that no one else has secured $22 million for anybody. And I know that I've done that. What it is that Fair Futures provides one-on-one coaching to young people that are in foster care so that they can get tutoring, they can get life coaching, they can get other educational supports and then a coach that helps them, help guide them in making decisions. Now, this may sound like it's, a lot. It's like so much coaching, but fact of the matter is every other New York City kid has coaching. Noah, you have coaching. Matthew, you have coaching. You know what that coaching is called? Do you know? Huh?
What is it called?
Yeah, it's called your dad. It's called your mom. It's called these people that you wake up every day and they're there for you. And these foster care youth don't have that same kind of support. So we fought with City Council. We met with them. We negotiated, and in the first year. No, I'll start with this. The first year we tried to get money for it. We went to the state. We met with state senators. We met with the budget directors from the governor's office. We met with assembly members. They shut us down, man. They shut us down. They were like, we're not paying for this. It's not going to happen. And instead of saying, this is not going to happen, we believed in this program so much that when we went to City Council, I created another pathway to get it done. We met with certain people from the Black, Latino, and Asian caucus. We met with specific City Council members, one being a staunch advocate for us, Adrian Adams, who's a current City Council member, from my neighboring district, and a few others that we would sit down and meet with, and they became champions for it. The City Council gave us $10 million the first year. The second year came around, the pandemic hit. Everybody's budget in New York City was slashed. They tried to give us $2.7 million. And I said, no, these are my young people. And I'm not talking about the ones that I have been working with directly. I'm talking about every foster care youth in New York City. So what we did was we said, let's get the deputy mayor on the line. Let's get the Office of Budget Management on the line. Let's have a conversation about where we can find the money to keep this program alive. Because not only these young people would no longer get coaching during a pandemic or help during a pandemic, but also the people that were hired to do the work would get fired. We're talking about over 1,000 people. So we got on the line. We threatened to protest. We were ready to go out there and protest at City Hall during a pandemic with all the foster care youth in New York City because it was that important for them to get it. And after a weekend, it was 4th of July weekend. I remember like it was yesterday because I didn't even get to eat a hot dog that weekend. We were negotiating until the last hour, and they increased it from $2.7 million to $12 million. So, from $2.7 million that they originally said they were going to give us to now, we got $2 more million than the year before. That brings us to a total of $22 million right now. And I'll end with that one. Right now, we are currently fighting to get this issue, what's called baseline in the city charter. Into the city budget, it's called a baseline of $20 million for this program. A baseline is important because you don't have to fight for this every year, right? Right now, the way it is, every year we have to go and meet with city council members. We have to negotiate. We have to look at the budget in depth. And every year I don't know if it's going to happen or not. But with a baseline, this will never be an issue again, and foster care youth will be taken care of. So the city council came out with their budget. We got $20 million included in their budget. The mayor, he did not put us into his budget. And so now we're getting ready for the fight to get into City Hall with the mayor and get him to make sure he's continuing to fund this program. So these are some of the great, the achievements that I really hang my hat on, because I know and I believe that it's impacting not only, a few lives, but thousands of young people's lives so that they can have a better tomorrow.
When did you decide it was time for you to run for city council office?
My daughter, 2 years old, right? I like to call her a protester in training. Every day I take her for a walk. You guys see the males that are walking around the neighborhood with a stroller. That's me. I'm that guy. And I was walking around the neighborhood, and literally I passed by St. Albans the Martyr Church, and there was a line that wrapped around the entire block. I mean, start right here all the way around. And I was amazed. But one of the most amazing things about that whole situation, and so disheartening, was the fact that this wasn't in April, right? Where the lockdown just happened and people, were losing their jobs. This wasn't in June when, what's called unemployment benefits, when all those ran out. This wasn't that. This was in October. So we were all kind of used to being on lockdown. We were all kind of knowing how to get the resources. And in our dear community in Southeast Queens, we had people that are literally on these lines trying to get food to survive this pandemic so that they can eat, so that they can survive this thing that is ravishing our communities at a rapid rate. And when I looked at that, I said to myself, it'll be selfish for me not to offer my skills to the community as a representative of city council. I said, if I'm in these meetings with these city council members, with their chief of staff, and I'm able to negotiate with them to the place where they're able to give me $10 million the first year, $12 million the second year, and now we're trying to get $20 million baseline, there's no reason why I shouldn't be offering that same skill set to my community to provide for your neighborhood, for my daughter's schools, for my best friend's housing rate, his property taxes. These are the different things that was pressing my heart at the time. And I said, we have this opportunity right now to stop surviving this pandemic, where we have people online trying to survive because they need food to eat. But instead, we can go and transition and move to the glory that is found thriving despite the pandemic, because the young people that I've been serving, they've been surviving. The foster care youth, they've been surviving. They are a resilient bunch of young people. Their entire lives, they've been surviving. But it was changing that mindset of having those young people survive to now those young people are thriving is the same kind of mindset that I want to bring to our district. We don't have to survive the next thing. We don't have to just survive this pandemic. What we can do is set ourselves up so that we're thriving despite everything that comes our way, because we have the resources to get it done.
How has your life, education, and career help mold you into the candidate that would be the best choice for City Council in District 27?
Yeah, so there it goes again with the idea of being a servant, understanding that sometimes you may not eat because other people need to eat. A lot of times you're going to be doing a lot less of the fun stuff and a lot more of the dirty work and a lot more of the staying up late. And it's from my young days in the church and working and serving to my college days and my fraternity, where, the main principle of the fraternity is service to mankind, service, servant, right in line with each other. To then graduate school and the work that I've been doing for the foster care youth in New York City, it's all been an evolution of just giving as much as I possibly can, to the point where I don't sleep sometimes. I don't get to have the fun, but what I do get is the gratification knowing that those sacrifices will help a family. Those sacrifices will save a life. And that's where the drive comes from, for why I think that District 27, they'd have someone in City Council that truly understands servitude. Just to say this, I'm not a politician. Politicians sometimes say that. I'm not a politician. I don't come from this world. Many of the people that are running, they come from the political world. They know how to keep things going as it is. What I genuinely believe is that if we stop with the politics and we start getting to the new ideas and the new visions and the new execution, that we can bring our neighborhoods from being average and below in the resources that we get to being exceptional again, to being at the top again. And it's right there in our reach, especially after this pandemic, right there in our reach. If we analyze the stuff that we've been doing wrong and start to realize that there's opportunities to do things really right, that, man, we can really make a difference. And not only a difference right now, but a difference for your generation. So when you're running for student body president, and when you're running for state senator and city council member, and you're trying to kick an old man like me out of my seat, we know you've had the resources to get it done. You've had the education that would make you decide a great career path for yourself, that you can really thrive. And not only just you, but all the young people that are in our beautiful and illustrious district. So, and in District 27. So, yeah, that's what it really boils down to. That's where, you have the connection of all these things that I've gone through that I believe can help me serve my community.
We asked you, who is Jermaine Sean Smith, the man? But now, who has the man become as the candidate?
The candidate, Jermaine, is becoming, has become understanding that with everything, there is struggle. With everything, there is a fight. And if you truly believe in something, and if you see that there's an opportunity here for transformational changes for the lives of people that are around you, you're going to have to fight for it. There's a poem that I love so very much, and a portion of it goes like this. The test of a man is the fight that he makes, the grit that he daily shows, the way that he stands upon his feet and takes life numerous bumps and blows. That right there, that poem, that portion of that poem tells you that when you are going through the struggle, it is preparing you, right? This is almost like a sermon right now that's happening, but you have to go through the fire to be able to get molded into that sword, to be sharp, you have to go through the thing that's hard. And I'll tell you this, campaigning is not easy. It's not easy because as much as people talk a lot as politicians, you have to listen 2 times even more. You have to pay attention to what people are saying and what they're trying to say to you, because that's where you're able to see how you can make an impact and change. So the candidate is learning, Jermaine is learning the valuable lesson that you have to go through the fire if you want to see the change happen.
How has the candidacy for the city council process been so far?
You know, I'd be lying to you if I said it wasn't fun. You know, I'm having a lot of fun. You know, I say it all the time, but it is stressful. And if I wasn't bald, I'd go bald. And I said this already because that's my running joke with it. But what I'm starting to notice too is I'm getting these gray hairs. They're popping up in the beard, you know, because it is stressful. But I tell you, it's fun. Why? It's fun because if you ever doubt the passion that people have for their families, for the community, for upward mobility as a society, then running for office should make sure that you are reaffirmed in that belief. And I'm seeing firsthand parents that are asking these tough questions because they are concerned about the resources their children are getting. Homeowners that are questioning why things are status quo because they're losing resources because they're having to pay property taxes but not receive the benefits of it. And when you see the elderly who have sacrificed so much, yet they're asking not about themselves, but about the community centers and the educational resources our children need. When you see all these things, you start to believe and understand that everybody is community invested. People love where they're from. They love their children. They love what the future has in hold, and they love making sure that they're a part of that community. And so when I say it's fun because I get a reminder every time. Conversations like this one with great questions that you guys curated to ask shows how you guys feel about our community. It shows that you guys are thoughtful young men. And that's why it's all fun to me. So am I going to do this? You know, am I going to do this forever? Probably not. You know, you pick a time, you go for it, you let the people speak, and then you give it all you got, and they believe you or they don't believe you, or they vote for you or they don't vote for you, but you know that you did your part. And that's where the fun lies. You know, that's where the fun is, where you're just giving it your all. You want to be the servant for the community and let the chips fall where they may.
If kids like us inspire to be community leaders and elected officials, what advice would you share that will help the next generation achieve their goals?
Now, to answer that question, I think that there's a thing that people kind of say, like, you know, stay in school and do an internship or da-da-da-da-da. I want to take it away from that. Instead, I want to talk to you about these intangible skills that many people don't pay enough attention to. So I know you guys are paying attention to it because, you know, you got some really good mentors and role models that you're superheroes that you speak to every day and consistently. But for your listeners, for your young and informed listeners and your a little bit older and informed listeners, some of the things that a young person should do is learn from a really young age a few things. One, emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence allows for you to understand what's happening around you. Is it the time to press someone about this issue? You know, is my teacher having a bad day? Should I be doing this? Emotional intelligence allows for you to be able to read the room, understand the room, help someone out. because you are emotionally in tune with what they have going on. 2, accountability. This is one of my favorite subjects. I could talk about accountability for hours. Literally, I can write papers on it. Let me pull out my favorite book. Here it is, right? The Question Behind the Question. This is by John G. Miller, okay? The Question Behind the Question. But in there, it's called Practicing Personal Accountability at Work and in Life. Great book. But in there, they break down the idea of accountability. And everybody kind of has their working definition of accountability and what it means. But I love John G. Miller's definition of accountability. He says that to get full accountability, one has to be responsible, empowered, and fully accountable. To get responsible, you have to have an understanding of what the task is. So if I ask you and I said, Matthew, can you take out the garbage on Tuesday nights? And you say, yes, I can take out the garbage on Tuesday nights because I know where to take the garbage out to. I know where to when to do it. I know where it needs to be put. And I know to fill the garbage can with another bag so that next time around we're good to go, right? That's where you're talking about, that responsibility. That's where the first section of accountability. The second section is you're empowered to do it. So if somebody asks you to do it, right? If dad, let's say, or mom says, Tuesdays, you taking out the garbage, Matthew, then you say to yourself, well, I have the ability to lift the garbage because the garbage is not heavy enough that I can't lift. And I have the ability to exit the home to bring it to the curb. I'm not breaking any rules. I'm following their directions. You are now empowered to do that task. The last thing is full accountability. And this is where a lot of people fail. Full accountability means whether you took out the garbage or not, whether you successfully put it on the corner or not, you stand up and say, hey, I did put out the garbage. I put out the garbage. I didn't put out the garbage. That's me. Whether you're successful or you failed, you take full accountability. And so full accountability is something that I really believe that if young people start to understand that going into the workforce, going into their schools and their studies, it no longer becomes that teacher doesn't like me, right? That professor doesn't speak English as good as I'd like him to do it. Instead, it becomes, I studied my butt off and I got that A. Or I didn't study enough and I got that C+, C-. That really comes down to being fully accountable for your actions. So that's another thing that I would make sure that young people have is full accountability. And the last thing I'd say is that there has to be an understanding that this is all bigger than one person. You know, when I was it feels like a former life, but before I had my baby and before I love my wife and I, we traveled the world. I mean, we saw some things. We've gone to New Zealand. Actually, that picture right there is from New Zealand, right? And man, New Zealand, if you know where New Zealand is on the map, it's far, okay? But when you get to these different places around the world, you start to realize that your single issue that you're facing that day is not the end of the world. It's not the beginning of the world. It's not even the middle of it because the world is so big. So if you kind of start to realize that I am a small cog trying to do my part, then you start to take that accountability and that ownership to realize that you have the option to not do anything or you have the option to get active. Because while you may be just impacting your direct community, you're also maybe impacting a person's children. Very similar to Chad, the young man I was telling you about earlier, where he was in the house and destined for jail, being locked up, or a drug kingpin trying to stay alive, that changed course and now has a business and he's pouring into other young people's lives. That is the thing that we all have the ability to do. No matter what career path we take, no matter what things we find that are interesting, if we're giving back and pushing people to do better and more from whatever age, I'm talking about, obviously you guys know this, your peers, right? To younger kids, even to older people. We're pushing people to be better, then we're all going to win from it. We're all going to be reaping the benefits of it, and the next generation will be better off.
What you said about accountability, I 100% agree with, because every day our Father reminds us about accountability, and he's always drilling into our head accountability is important. So what you said about accountability is 100% true, as I stated earlier. And yeah,
like if you get this now, you're halfway there, man. Like you seriously are, because if you're not putting the blame on somebody else, then you're taking ownership for it, and so you're gonna fix it next time around. Because we all fail, you know. But if we can see, well, I didn't feel empowered, or I didn't know I was responsible, and next time I'm gonna be responsible, I'm gonna be empowered, and if I'm not empowered, I'm gonna make sure I get empowered. Oh, I have to take out the garbage, but I can't lift it. I'm not empowered to lift it. Well, maybe I need to separate the garbage into 2 piles so I can lift each. That's empowerment. And then when we take that and we get that garbage to the side of the street, and you wake up the next morning, you're going to school and you see the garbage man throwing it into the garbage, that's you. That's you. You're accountable for that. That's success. And if the garbage is in the house and it's smelling, and somebody comes at you and be like, yo, why is it smelling in here? That's you still, because you got to be accountable for that. So I'm 10 people don't tell the same lie. So if your dad's telling you that, you know, if the family's telling you that, then you know it's got to be true. So you get that now, both of you, Noah and Matthew, man, the world is your oyster.
What is the mission behind the phrase "stop surviving and start thriving"?
Yeah, I think it just really goes to that, to the saying where a lot of us, when we get hit with a tragedy, we try to just survive it. Like I just got to get out of this time. I got to get out of this rough patch. I got to just survive this thing. And that's why I'm always wary when I ask somebody how they're doing, they're like, man, I'm just making it. Just making it. That's not good enough, right? We only get to live this life one time. Just making it is not good enough. Just surviving is not good enough. When I look at different catastrophes that has happened in our society, for example, there's examples where, catastrophe has hit a country and they never rebounded from it. You know, if you look at history, there's been, the Ottoman Empire to even, as close as the British reign, right? When something big happened to them, they never truly rebound. But it's the societies, it's the communities that when catastrophe hits, they see an opportunity, not a deficit. They see an ability to rethink how things are done so that they come out better. An example of that was in 9/11. Our communities were devastated by 9/11. So many people that were murdered by terrorists. And it hurt us all, right? But New York is strong. So instead of just folding, we started to thrive. The city came back stronger than it was before. The city started having more jobs than it did before. And that's an idea of just, we can't survive these things. We cannot survive catastrophes. We cannot survive being under-resourced. We cannot survive not having our fair shake. We have to thrive so we get all those things. We have to thrive so we can reimagine how these things are coming our way so that we can get the things that we need for the future. So surviving, and the idea of stop surviving and start thriving, it's not just a campaign moniker to me. This is the way I've been living my professional life. I've been preaching this message to young people in foster care for 15 years. I've been working with families in a nonprofit for over 12 years with the idea, like, you you can try to survive this drug addiction that you have, this unemployment issue that you have. You can try to survive it, or you can thrive. You can thrive despite it. And this is how we do it. And, I'm proud that many of those people that bought into that idea stopped just saying, hey, I'm just making it. How you doing? How you doing, Jimmy? Just making it. They start saying, hey, I'm doing great. I'm going to be doing great. I'm on the path to greatness. And that's some of the answers that, I like to give. How you doing, Jermaine? I'm on the path to greatness. So that's where the whole idea of stop surviving and start thriving comes from. It's not just a moniker. It's not just something I say, but it's my reality. It's what I believe in and how I've been helping people for the past 15 plus years.
When elected to the City Council District 27 seat, what is the first job you want to tackle out the gate?
Well, the first job, and I wouldn't even call it a job, but the first thing I like to do is reach out to the entire community and say thank you for being a part of the electoral process. Thank you for engaging. Thank you for voting. Thank you for giving your mind and your thoughts to this process, because that's what it's all about. We have to sit down and we have to talk about the fact that we all could be doing better with voting as a community. And so when people show up, which I believe they will show up, and they vote, I have to go, even people that voted against me, or they put me number 3 on their ranked choice list, or the number 4, I'm going to say thank you for participating in the process. The next thing that I would do is there's this piece of legislation. I won't get into the minutia of it all, but it's called Planning Together. And literally every other night, I have a bit of a nightmare about this, okay? And Planning Together, if you guys don't know, it's a legislation that was introduced by the Speaker of the City Council, Corey Johnson, that would directly put in a commission to look at how do we make sure there's enough housing for New Yorkers, after the commission is done. So they'll look at communities to make sure there's enough equity, there's enough, access to resources, there's enough ability to have proper education. All that is good. But the next step they want to do is they want to get rid of all the single family homes in New York City to possibly build up. So they'll take a one family house lot and turn that one family house lot into 4 families. And our communities, the places that we live in, the places that we love, the places that my grandfather came here from Jamaica and bought a house right there on 219 in Hollis. And then my great-grandmother bought a house in St. Albans on 118 and 118 and 190th Street. The same places that these families were rejected from when they wanted to come to this neighborhood. Now we're here and built a home for ourselves. The city wants to come in now and make it 4 family dwellings. That's not going to happen. Not under my watch. I'll literally camp outside of that office until that is no longer something that we're talking about. The stuff about equity, the stuff about doing research into who's getting what resources, that can continue. But in a city where there's 73% of the people are renters, 73% of the people in New York City are renters, and 27% are homeowners. In our communities, it's the complete opposite. So 73%, somewhere 73 to 76% are homeowners, and the rest are renters. Now, we don't speak that same language. And that's why I believe that when I get to city council and I'm the only one that knows how to go in there day one, right, and negotiate how to get this thing off the table, how to get this thing out of committees, how to get this thing off the table so that my community is not facing that issue. My district is not facing that issue, because the same way they didn't want to fund foster care youth, the same way nobody was protecting it because a lot of people don't understand the foster care system. Going in there, I was at a disadvantage. And going in as a city council member to tackle this issue, You're at a disadvantage because a lot of New York City are renters. But I've proven time and time again that I'm able to go in there with the chips against me and know what to say, how to say, what buttons to press to make sure that the integrity of our community remains exactly the way it is.
Overall, what would you like to let kids know about you and the reasons you feel it's important being an active member of the community?
What do kids need to know? Okay, the kids need to know that a lot of people say the children are our future. Famous song from the 80s, right? I dispel that notion altogether. The children are not our future, ladies and gentlemen. They are not. Sorry, you're wrong, incorrect. The children are our now. The children are our now. And we need to embrace that fact because we've long gone our potential for greatness as older people. But you know, our children are living that potential each day, each grade. And we as parents, we as older people, we as voters have to make sure that we are guarding that integrity, guarding that greatness, because that is literally the lifeblood of our community. And so as a person that has been fighting for young people my entire professional career, that is a priority, the priority for me, whether that be education resources and making sure that, you know, we get the right teachers in the room, making sure that parents have the opportunity to send their children to schools that they want to send them to, right? Or whether we're talking about nonprofit organizations getting the resources they need to provide programs for our young people, to provide opportunities for them to get engaged in community service, to provide opportunities for the young people to get the resources they need to excel. These things are the priority on my plate. They're priority on my agenda. And this ain't because I'm running for office. This is on my track record. This is on my resume. This is with the young people that I can pick up my phone right now and call so many of them, hundreds of them, this is what has been happening for many years now. And so, you know, the game might have changed, the arena might have changed, but the game is different. The game is just the same. The game ain't different. The game is just the same. And so that's what I like to implore. I mean, you know, imagine a young person telling their parent, hey, did you vote? Something's going to change. That parent's going to get engaged because they know their kid, their child is there now, and they have a say in what happens.
Why do you think it is important for kids like us to be young and informed in preparation for our time to lead the next generations?
You know, there's a saying, a smart man learns from his mistakes. Have you guys heard this one before?
I've heard it before.
A smart man learns from his mistakes, but a wise man learns from others. And to understand the idea of being young and informed, there is some power there, because you're not young and dumb, right? You're not young and confused. You're not young and under-informed. You are young and informed. And if you're young and informed, then you are now being a part of that wise crew that has learned from the previous generations, the mistakes, the lack of involvement from some young people back in the day, right? Some lack of involvement from older people bringing young people to the table to have those conversations. And so to be young and informed, to be able to have that moniker, is your ability to now impact change for today, tomorrow, and 20 years from now.
Thank you very much for coming on our podcast today. Your mission is obviously your purpose, and what a dynamic interview. Thank you very much.
Thank you both for having me. It was a pleasure. Sometimes I go off into preacher mode, but thank you for allowing me the platform to be able to speak. For your listeners and everybody that's tuning in, please continue to subscribe to these young men, because like I said, they're not the future, they are the now. And if you want to get that good quality, you got to stop in and make sure you check in and tap in with Young Informed Noah, Young Informed Matthew, and they're the Young Informed team. Excited to be here, Young Informed Media. Thank you for having me. If I could, I'd love to plug some of my campaign stuff. Is that all right?
Yes.
Yes, it's so
great. Thank you. Anybody that's interested, please feel free to check out my website, That is JSS for SEQ.com. So Jermaine Sean Smith for Southeast Queens, JSS for SEQ.com. You can also check out my podcast that I host. That's called Sequence the Podcast, What's Next and Now in Southeast Queens. And you can check that for everywhere that you would get Young and Informed. You can go over and check out Sequence as well. So now you have two things to listen to. And then the last thing is the campaign social medias, and everything is at JSS for SEQ. So you think of the social media, it's there. JSS for SEQ, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever. JSS for SEQ, Twitter, JSS for SEQ.com. So JSSFORSEQ.com. Please take a look around, vote, get engaged, follow these young men, and be informed. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for coming and coming with us today. Have a great day.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Power Matt, energy. Introducing my firstborn.
Welcome to YIN, Young and Informed Media News. Today on Conversations With, we talked with Jermaine Sean Smith and his run for the District 27 City Council. Wasn't it a dynamic interview, Matthew?
Yeah, it was amazing. We learned so much stuff.
Yeah. What did you like about it?
I really liked that he was talking honest, and he was talking about accountability, and there's so much stuff that I like.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
One of the key points, like you said, accountability. Another key point for me was how he talked about how kids are not the future, but they are the now. We're not the future, but we're the now, because we get all this information and power now. We can act as like how we are doing. We're informing kids our age or even older people, anyone watching us, we're informing them now. So we're not the future, we are the now. So it was just an amazing interview, and I learned so much from Jermaine Sean Smith, and I know he's going to win and end up in the District 27 Council.
My favorite thing that he said was he was making an example for accountability about when you take out the trash, right?
Right.
If you don't take out the trash and it's smelly, then that's your accountability. If
Right.
you do take out the trash and you see the the garbage man just taking it to the garbage truck, then that's your accountability. Whatever you do is your accountability. Whatever
Right.
decision you make after that.
Yeah, we both relate to that, because every day we're taking out the trash, and we have to make sure that we have to take out the trash when it's full, so that it's not overflowing or that it's not smelling. And if it's our day to take out the trash and we didn't take out the trash, then it's our fault, and it's our responsibility, our accountability to step up to the plate and say, okay, I didn't do this, but next time I have to do this to make sure I complete my goals.
Right, you gotta, when you do something wrong, then you just gotta, even if you do something right, just think in your mind like, oh, I want to do better than this. And if you do something wrong, oh, I did this wrong. All right, next time I'm gonna, and then just think of something, better and do it better next time.
Because you can never do anything perfect, so there's always room for improvement. You do this thing good, okay, how can I do it better? And every day you try to be, I've heard Kobe Bryant say this, every day you wake up and try to be a better you than your yesterday. So that's a really powerful quote, and I 100% agree with that. Another point that I loved in our interview is how he mentioned helping kids who were in the foster care or the system. That really got to me, because I mean, it really shows how blessed we are to have a good functioning family where we're not out in the streets homeless, or where New York City is controlling us, where we have a family that loves us and we have a place to eat. And basically his motto, stop surviving and start thriving, is a very powerful motto. We're not just surviving right now, we're supposed to be thriving. And I feel like with the family we have right now, and how we're doing in our business. Even our business is thriving. We're doing great work with our business, and we're putting a lot of hard work in, and that's why we're seeing all this success and all these good things happening to us. So we're not just surviving, we're thriving. And I think that that's the way it's supposed to be. Stop surviving and start thriving. So I 100% agree with everything Mr. Smith is saying, doing, and I just think that he's the best choice for the District 27 council seat. Stay young and informed and have a great day. Goodbye.
Goodbye.